Archaeologists work tirelessly, piecing together the puzzle of our past. Each new discovery sheds light on the lives of those who came before us, giving us a glimpse of their everyday lives, the things they cherished, the homes they built, and even the skeletal remains of their forgotten bodies. But not all the stories they tell are peaceful or pretty. In fact, some of the things we find reveal just how tough, brutal, and violent life really was back then. And that's what you're going to see here. 15 of the most terrifying archaeological discoveries that will leave you shocked and horrified. And let's start with number 15, Aztec skull rack and towers. The Aztec practice of human sacrifice is infamous, and for good reason. It's no surprise, then, that archaeologists have uncovered numerous human skulls at Aztec temples. One of the most chilling discoveries was the Tzompantli, or skull rack, located outside the Templo Mayor in the heart of Tenochtitlan. These skulls weren't just decorations, they were symbolic, deeply tied to the Aztecs' religious beliefs. In 2015, archaeologists made another jaw-dropping find. Two towering structures flanking the skull wall, made entirely of human skulls. These towers, part of the larger Tzompantli, were a testament to the scale of human sacrifice that occurred here. Nerds from the National Institute of Anthropology and History said that the rack and surrounding walls must have contained thousands of skulls, giving us a haunting glimpse into the magnitude of this ritual. It wasn't just a few sacrifices. It was a system, an entire culture built on blood and devotion. Number 14, a mummified lung. Mummies are quite creepy. We mean they're the stuff of nightmares, wrapped in bandages, preserved in eerie stillness. But imagine this. You open a tomb and find not a full body, but a single leathery lung and nothing else but a skeleton. Well, that's exactly what archaeologists stumbled upon in 1959 when they unearthed a stone coffin in the Basilica of St. Denis. Inside were the skeletal remains of Queen Arnegunde, who reigned between AD 515 and 580. But the real mystery? Her body had mostly decayed, yet her lung was perfectly preserved. This mystery lingered until 2016, when scientists discovered traces of plant compounds and high copper levels in the lung. They concluded that embalming fluid, possibly infused with herbs and spices, was likely injected into her throat after death. The copper belt she was buried with likely played a role in preserving the lung, thanks to its natural antibacterial properties. Intriguing, isn't it? Number 13, Polish vampire burials. Well, when you hear the word vampire, you probably think of Dracula or some kind of other fictional creature lurking in the shadows, thirsty for blood. But the actual story behind Eastern European vampires is far creepier. Between the 1600s and 1700s in Poland, some people were buried with sickles placed over their necks or rocks wedged under their chins, precautions taken to keep them from rising from the grave. Locals believed these individuals might return as vampires, preying on the blood of the living, especially family and friends. In 2014, researchers uncovered the truth behind these so-called vampire burials at Drosko Cemetery. The bodies weren't victims of violence or some supernatural curse. Instead, they were likely victims of a cholera epidemic, which struck rapidly and could easily have been mistaken for vampirism. The sickle and rocks were merely an attempt to control what people didn't understand, a tragic mix of fear and disease that created one of history's most chilling burial practices. The lesson is simple. Don't believe everything. Sometimes the truth of history is much stranger than fiction. Number 12, a toothy tumor. When Spanish archaeologists uncovered the 1,600-year-old skeleton of a Roman woman, they were stunned by a peculiar discovery in her pelvis. Amid the bones, they found a calcified mass, a ball with 4 deformed teeth, caught between her hips. This unsettling find turned out to be an ovarian teratoma, a rare type of tumor formed from germ cells, the precursors to human egg cells. Teratomas can grow body parts like teeth, bones, and even hair. While most teratomas are benign, the one found in the Roman woman's pelvis was likely the cause of her death, though it's possible she never knew the tumor existed. Archaeologists speculate that complications from the growth led to her demise, but the fact that this ancient woman carried such a bizarre and rare tumor for so long is both fascinating and eerie. This discovery offers an incredible glimpse into the medical challenges faced by ancient people. Now, let's move to Number 11. The man-eating animals of Teotihuacan. Picture this. Archaeologists in Teotihuacan uncover what looks like a wild animal den, but not the kind you'd see at a zoo. No, we're talking jaguars, pumas, and lynxes, all waiting their turn to be sacrificed to the gods. But here's the twist. The animals weren't the only ones making the sacrifice. Hidden in the bones of these fierce creatures, researchers found traces of humans. Yep, turns out these priests weren't just feeding the animals maize, though that was part of the menu. They were feeding them a people too. Artwork on the walls even depicted these beasts munching on human hearts. Guess it was just part of the ceremony. So, while you thought the worst part of ancient sacrifice was the altar, it turns out the animal dens were where the real drama went down. Talk about a wild way to make a divine offering. Humans are quite strange. Number 10. Celtic Hybrid Boneyard. If you ask your friends about hybrid monsters, they'll probably make fun of you and say, "You're skibidi." But what if we told you that hybrid creatures, straight out of ancient Celtic mythology, were real? That's exactly what archaeologists discovered at a burial site in Doropolis, Dorset. Until recently, we didn't think the Celts had hybrid monsters, but this boneyard reveals a darker, stranger reality. The cemetery contains pits filled with animal skeletons that have been deliberately rearranged to form bizarre hybrid creatures, like a sheep with a bull's head and a cow with horse legs. The most chilling discovery was the skeleton of a woman placed atop a layer of animal bones arranged to mirror the shape of a human body. Her head rested on a bed of animal skulls, and her legs were positioned above animal leg bones. Archaeologists believe these unsettling remains were part of sacrificial rituals. What began as food storage pits eventually became burial sites for offerings, with human sacrifices marking the final stage. Well, history is a scary place. Number 9. Remnants of a witch hunt. Sometimes an archaeology discovery doesn't need to involve bones to be disturbing. In Aberdeen, Scotland, a 15th century church holds an artifact that's deeply unsettling. A stone pillar set with an iron ring was likely used to restrain accused witches during the infamous witch trials of 1597. That year, Aberdeen became the epicenter of the Great Witch Hunt, a terrifying wave of accusations and executions. It's super spine-chilling. Around 400 people were tried, and nearly 200 were executed in just 8 months. The deaths were brutal and often horrific. One of the most notorious cases involved Jane Wishart and her precious son, Thomas Lewis, who was convicted of witchcraft. Both were strangled and then burned at the stake. The discovery of this stone pillar serves as a chilling reminder of the hysteria and cruelty that marked the witch trials, where innocent people were tortured and killed under the weight of fear and superstition. Number 8. Oldest ever shark attack victim. Nowadays, shark attacks are pretty rare and often make headlines when they happen. But over 3,000 years ago, one of our dear ancestors experienced the ultimate close encounter. Whether he was swimming or fishing, his day took a deadly turn when a shark attacked and killed him. In 2019, archaeologists from the University of Oxford made a super rare discovery near Japan's Seto Inland Sea at the Tsukumo site. They unearthed skeletal remains that provided the first direct evidence of a prehistoric shark attack on a human. The 3,000-year-old bones bore over 7 to 90 traumatic injuries across the arms, legs, abdomen, and chest. After meticulously ruling out human conflict and other predators, experts concluded that a great white or tiger shark was most likely responsible. This find not only sheds light on ancient human-shark interactions, but also bridges a gap in our understanding of early human history and the dangers they faced in the natural world. Number 7. Pit of Death. A property development project in France uncovered something truly shocking in 2012. A pit, 6.5 feet deep and 5 feet in diameter, filled to the brim with bones. Even more sickening, the bones consisted of severed arms and fingers, as well as the skeletons of infants, children, and adults. Researchers found at least 7 upper arms, including one from a young teenager. On top of the amputated limbs, 7 bodies had been tossed into the pit, including that of a middle-aged man who'd had an arm chopped off and suffered a blow to the head. These bones date back about 5,000 years. The bodies and body parts most likely were casualties of war, the researchers said. Some may also have been executed in a sort of brutal Neolithic justice. We mean, it is terrifying, isn't it? Just think about it for a second. All right, now let's move to our next finding. Number 6. Otzi the Iceman. Otzi the Iceman wasn't just a prehistoric mummy. He was basically the first chill victim of a crime scene, discovered by some German hikers in 1991. These hikers were just looking for a nice trek when they stumbled upon a 5,300-year-old murder mystery preserved in ice like the world's weirdest popsicle. His body was perfectly frozen in the Ötztal Alps, along with his gear. Talk about ancient swag. But here's the kicker. Otzi wasn't just chillin', he was likely murdered. At first, archaeologists thought he'd just slipped on some ice and met an untimely end. But a 2001 X-ray revealed an arrowhead in his shoulder and a serious head wound. So yeah, someone clearly had it out for him. Let's not forget the Otzi curse, a spooky little detail that seems to have haunted anyone who dared get too close to his frozen tomb. Murder mystery and bad luck? Sounds like a Netflix series waiting to happen. Number 5. Largest mass child sacrifice. In 2019, archaeologists in Peru uncovered what is believed to be the largest single mass child sacrifice in history. Near the coastal town of Huanchaco, north of Lima, the bodies of 227 children, ranging from ages 5 to 14, were found. These sacrifices date back around 500 years, likely during the reign of the Chimu civilization. Shockingly, many of the children's hair and skin remained intact when uncovered. The children were buried facing the sea, suggesting that their deaths were part of a ritual to appease the gods during a time of extreme weather. Historians believe these sacrifices occurred during a catastrophic El Niño event, which wreaked havoc on the Chimu economy. The priests, desperate to end the relentless rains, may have orchestrated the mass killings to persuade the gods to restore balance. This gruesome discovery offers a chilling glimpse into the dark practices used to control nature and ensure survival. Number 4. The Frankenstein mummies. Our ancestors did not only come up with hybrid beasts. The inexplicable, as in this case, is often the most creepy. During an excavation at a Bronze Age hamlet in Scotland, archaeologists unearthed the skeletons of a man and a woman. The skeletons were around 3,000 years old and had been intentionally mummified, in this case, stored in peat bogs to halt decomposition. But upon closer study, researchers discovered something more disturbing. The skeletons included parts from several bodies. The woman was made up of a male head, a female torso, and an unidentifiable arm, while the man was made up of bones from 3 different individuals. In simple words, the archaeologists had found a human skeleton jigsaw puzzle with no guidelines or explanations. Number 3. The cannibalized remains of Horrifying. History is not always the neatly packaged heroic tale we imagine. In Herxheim, Germany, a construction crew uncovered something straight out of a nightmare. Over 1,000 ancient bodies buried under land that was supposed to become a building site. These remains, over 7,000 years old, weren't just buried. They had been brutally desecrated. The skulls were scraped clean, ribs torn from vertebrae, and bones shattered, with the marrow gruesomely sucked out. The victims had been scalped, skinned, and, disturbingly, cannibalized. But here's the truly chilling part. This wasn't a random act of violence. The violence wasn't born from desperation, nor was it a crime of passion. This was an organized, ritualistic slaughter, something planned and executed by an entire community. It wasn't a momentary lapse in sanity. It was a disturbing, dark tradition that involved the collective participation of a society. This horrifying discovery reveals a brutal chapter in human history that no one could have imagined. Now, let's move to Number 2. Terracotta warriors. If you think digging a well is just a boring task, think again. In 1974, a group of laborers in China stumbled upon a life-size soldier while digging. At first, they probably thought, cool, a random statue. Little did they know, they were about to uncover one of the most epic archaeological discoveries in the entire human history. As excavations continued, they unearthed an army of over 8,000 clay soldiers, each with its own facial expression and weapon, kind of like a highly organized ancient action figure collection. But wait, there's more. They also found full-size terracotta horses and chariots. This massive project was the brainchild of Qin Shi Huangdi, the first emperor of China, who thought, what better way to spend eternity than with a mini army? His tomb, still unexplored due to stability concerns, is guarded by not just soldiers but also statues of dancers and acrobats. Well, guess he wanted to keep things lively in the afterlife. Number 1. Shackled skeletons. Well, there is nothing more terrifying than the sight of a skeleton bound by chains, trapped in an eternal scream. In 2016, archaeologists unearthed at least 80 such skeletons in Palio Faliro, an Athens neighborhood, and the discovery was both chilling and fascinating. These skeletons, all young men in good health when they died, were found with their wrists shackled, their mouths open as if frozen in their final moments of terror. The men were believed to be followers of Cylon, a nobleman and Olympic champion who attempted a failed coup to seize Athens in the 7th century BCE, an event now known as the Cylon Affair. After the coup collapsed, his fellows sought refuge in the Temple of Athena on the Acropolis. According to the historian Thucydides, they were killed as soon as they left the temple. Pottery found at the site confirmed the timing, revealing that these tragic deaths occurred during the aftermath of Cylon's ill-fated rebellion. And that's it for today's class. If you enjoyed this journey, be sure to like and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one. And again, never believe everything about history. It's a horror story that never ends. That never ends. That never ends.